These are 9 sales mistakes that your gym won't make anymore. And notice I said anymore, and that's because if you're like 80% of gyms, you're making at least half of them, if not more. And that's going to end today because once you see what I show you, you won't be able to unsee it. And you'll feel it every time you have the chance to do it. So it'll just stop. My name is Mike Arce. I'm the CEO of GSD Gyms. We've now worked with over 4,200 gyms all over the world in 60 different franchise brands, hundreds of independent brands, 13 different countries. And we've probably helped more gyms get to over $100,000 a month in revenue than anybody else on the planet. And if you want to know more about how that works, you can go to 100kplan.com. Okay, so let's dive in. These are subtle mistakes. These aren't huge, but they do have a huge impact. And I will tell you, the gyms that have taken this out of their repertoire here, you've stopped doing them, they are the ones that are getting to that $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, $120,000 a month range. And the people that are stuck at 15, 20, 25, they've got a lot of little bad habits. And some of them stem from here. So we're going to crush them. We're going to go one by one. These are mistakes that actually demonstrated at GSDCon in Denver not too long ago. And we had people asking for the recording right away. And I think it's because it's stuff that people realize it's so easy to just have happen in their gym. They want their employees to get rid of these things. So let's get started. So the first one needs you to use inversion thinking. Now, this isn't necessarily a mistake as far as doing inversion thinking, but what's the mistake is the opposite of it, which is wanting to problem solve linearly, like in a straight line. And that doesn't really work. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Man, how do I fix our sales process? How do we fix our sales results? How do we get more people to book? How do we get more people to show? How do we get more people to close? How do we get more people to refer? This is how everybody thinks. Charlie Munger made this style of thinking very popular. And if you guys don't know Charlie Munger, he was the partner and mentor to Warren Buffett. Both are multi-billionaires. Charlie Munger now passed, so he's no longer with us. But his lessons, if you go to YouTube, are just incredible. But one of the things he taught is inversion thinking, and it changed the way I problem solved and also the way that our top members do as well. So what inversion thinking does is it says, well, what do we want to have happen? And so let's say for you, it's, I want to improve my sales process. Well, then first thing you do is you would say, well, how do I ruin it? I'll give you an example outside of gyms just so you can kind of see it. If I said to you, well, you want to have a great marriage, let's first ask this. How would you destroy the marriage? If you wanted to crush the marriage, just ruin it as fast as you possibly could, what are some things you could do? And when I asked the people in the audience at GSDCon, we had people raising their hand and saying stuff like cheat, lie, be degrading, not be around, not show appreciation. All of these things started coming up. And I made a list of all of them. I said, okay, great. So we made a list. Now, what's the exact opposite of all of those things? So what's the exact opposite of cheating? And somebody said not cheating. I said, well, yeah, not cheating, but the exact opposite of it, cheating would be I know you're being unfaithful. What if the exact opposite was, I don't even question it. There's no way I can even imagine my spouse cheating on me. And if it was lying, what's the exact opposite? Oh, he always tells the truth. I know that if I ask him something, he's going to give me the truth, right? So you make a list of all the things that would ruin the thing that you're wanting to make great. And then you just say, what's the exact opposite of all those things? So with sales, I want you to ask this question. I did this thing at the event as well. I want you to make a list of all the things that you could do to improve the probability of you never making a sale again. What are all the things that you could do? And you can start all the way at the beginning at the lead process. You can go all the way to the end where it's the close process. It's up to you. And so people started making a list. We kind of just stopped and put some music on for about 5 minutes and everybody just worked on stuff and people came up with a list. I said, great, now what I want you to do is tell me what the exact opposite of those things are. And they made a list of all the exact opposites. What was interesting was that a lot of people claimed that a lot of the things that are on the right side of that sheet, the opposites, which would mean these are things that would make it amazing, they weren't doing themselves. So it allowed them to open their mind to problem solving in a different way than if they started with, how do I fix my sales problem? That didn't work nearly as well. So the reason I put inversion thinking in the 9 sales mistakes is because you're always going to have something that's acting as a constraint in your sales process. You're not always going to be humming at 100%. Sometimes your lead to contact rate is going to be excellent. Sometimes it's going to be down. Sometimes your contact to book is going to be great, or your book to show, or your show to close, your close to referral. All these things have their own opportunities to be great or not great or somewhere in the middle. And you always want to find the weakest link. Where's the biggest bottleneck right now and you improve it. Well, instead of improving it the way most people do, which is how do I make it better, we would say, how do I destroy it? How do we make sure that nobody ever books or nobody ever shows? And how do we do the exact opposite? So I want you to give that a shot. Okay, let's go on to number 2. 2 is product over problem. So what do I mean by that? Well, you want to focus on the problem, but most people focus on the product. They talk about how amazing their product is, how great their community is, how great their instructors are, how great their location is, how great their workouts are, the program. In fact, just the other day, I was on the phone with somebody. He was telling me that he was really struggling with sales. He goes, I don't get it. We've got incredible workouts. We've got incredible coaches. We're in a great location. And I said, that's awesome for you. What about for me? What does that do for me? And he goes, well, you get to have all those things. I go, but are all those things amazing for me? And so I explained to him a scenario where you might sell somebody a house that you think is a great house, but what if I don't want a 2-story house? And what if I don't want a swimming pool? And you might say, everybody wants a 2-story house and a swimming pool. Well, no, probably not, and maybe not. And so the best thing to do is actually focus more on the problem. Interestingly enough, when you focus on the problem and you become an expert on the problem, that person automatically assumes that, number 1, you have the solution, and number 2, you have experience and you know what the hell you're talking about, and you can actually help solve it for them. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So I was at a conference. I just broke my knee. What I mean by that, for anybody that knows the body better, you don't really break a knee. But what I did was I ruptured my patellar tendon. So I was in a straight leg brace. I was on crutches. But I did make a contract that I was going to speak at this event, and I had to go speak at the event. It was a very uncomfortable flight. I got there. It was even more uncomfortable to speak in this thing, but I did it. At lunch, while sitting at one of the round tables, and there was like 8 or 9 other people at the round table having lunch, one of them came down, sit down, and looked at my knee and said, what happened to your knee? And I said, I ruptured my patellar tendon. And he goes, huh? And he goes, basketball? I said, yeah, actually. And he goes, yeah, you just had surgery, what, like within the last week or 2? I said, yeah, how'd you know? He's like, well, your brace is still pretty straight. You haven't really started moving with the degrees yet. I'm like, oh yeah, I just had it. He goes, so how's going down the stairs versus up the stairs? I go, oh my gosh, down the stairs is terrible. He goes, yeah. He's like, you got to figure out that crutch move. I go, yeah, I started to, but I sometimes forget. And then he said, when you take the shower using a plastic bag, you just sponging down. I'm like, yeah, I'm using the plastic bag. And he goes, and are you using the electrodes for your thighs in order to make your quads fire? And I said, yeah. And I finally said, what do you do? And he goes, well, I'm actually a physical therapist, but I specialize with athletes and focus predominantly on the knee. Now, as you can imagine, I wanted to hire this guy right there and then to be my physical therapist. I was in the middle of choosing one. In my mind, I'm like, you're the guy. This is exactly who I want. But I don't know anything about him. I don't know his credentials. I don't know where he went to school. I don't know how long he's been doing it. I don't know his case studies, his testimonials. I don't know anything about him. He could be in a complete shithole somewhere in an alley in the hood, and he just started his business a month ago. All those things could be true, but I assume that they're not. Why? Because he understood my problem, and he just focused on my problem so well that that's the only thing I really talked about. I did an episode at Ohm Fitness. If you guys look on the podcast a few episodes back, where I actually went in there and I showed in the studio how this is done. So when you're done watching this episode, I would strongly encourage you watch the episode where I'm behind the scenes at Ohm Fitness, and you'll see exactly how I did it. Next one is believing they can't afford it. So what do I mean by that? Look, the truth is some people can't afford what you've got. That is true. What's also true is that people spend money on whatever they can afford anyway. Here's what I mean. Right now, I'll get this number exact, $6,329 is the average American credit card debt, where a large portion of that credit card debt is on what's called non-essentials, meaning this isn't to keep the lights on, this is to keep sushi on the table. This isn't to keep the heat on or to make sure that your child gets fed. It's to make sure you got that new Apple Watch. That's where a large majority of this 6,329 credit card debt comes into play. Well, what does that have to do with affordability? What it says is even if a person can't afford it, they're going to get it anyway, and they'll just make payments on it. And so the question that I've got for you is, Do you feel like you actually help someone more than sushi or an Apple Watch or a PS5 or whatever it is they're going to spend that's non-essential? Do you consider what you do more essential than any of those things? The other question to ask is, do you think that if you were to get this person to be a part of what you do, that you could actually be that first domino, which we're going to talk about in a bit, to help them actually improve their life, which might even improve this? I mean, I don't know about you, but every time I've looked at members as a whole, members that are consistent in the gym tend to do better at work, and they tend to be able to be more successful in other areas of their life. And the people that just kind of shut down everywhere. So I just believe in the idea of treating everybody like a millionaire. And that's how we sell so well. And nobody ever regrets it. And I don't think I've ever made anybody go bankrupt. So let me give you an example of why you need to treat everybody like a millionaire. So it was about 2017, and I had just moved into my new house. My son and I, we went to Home Depot because I realized that our patio was completely bare and it just needed some furniture. Now, I'm not really a particular guy. I'm not going to go and look at 4,000 pieces of furniture before I make a decision. And I'm definitely not going to go get the fanciest stuff. It's just not important enough to me. I'd rather spend all my money traveling. However, went to Home Depot, walked in, looked to the right. First thing that I saw was a patio set. It was all decked out, already set up so that people can see it, how it would look when it's opened up. And I looked at it and I said, that's it. Let's just get that one. He goes, okay. I go to the Home Depot guy and I said, hey, I want this set here. And he goes, okay, so you want these couches? I said, yeah. And he goes, okay. And so do you know which color you want? I told him I want that same color, whatever's here. He goes, okay, cool. So just the couches? And I said, well, no, I want everything that's there. And he goes, what do you mean by everything? Like the table, all of it, everything. And he goes, okay, so not like the pillows or anything. And I said, no, yeah, like the pillows, the centerpiece that's on the table, the rug. He goes, even the rug. I said, everything. Whatever you see here, I want to just take that picture and I want to put it on my actual patio. That's what I want. And he goes, okay, you can get like a lot of that stuff, like those pillows, you can get it for like half the price on Amazon. And I said, okay, yeah, but they're here. Like I'm already here and they're here and there's like 6 pillows. And he's like, I know, in the rug too, you can get that a lot cheaper. Like you get something just like that on Amazon for like probably 75% of the price. And I said, I know, but the rug's here. Listen, thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. I like the intent, but I'm just going to get all this. Now, the business owner inside of me is thinking, does your manager, does the owner know that people are actually sending people to Amazon? They're wanting this. They're already saying it. The sale is made and they're sending them away. But I kept my mouth shut because I got work to do. I just moved into a house. You can imagine I got a lot going on. So after that happened, I was just telling my son how, look, this is an example of he's selling with his wallet because he wouldn't do that, because he wouldn't pay for those pillows and he'd do the extra work to go find how to piece this all together for maybe a few $100s in savings. He thinks that anybody that doesn't do that is wasteful or whatever. But to me, it's more wasteful to waste my time. I could be at the house with the family right now, spending real time instead of on my laptop looking for a pillow for half off, right? So anyway, he comes back. He goes, okay, I can get everything boxed up. He goes, do you have a truck or anything? And I said, no, I don't have a truck. I got a sedan. And he goes, well, do you have a friend that has a truck? I go, I'm sure I have a friend that has a truck, but I thought I saw outside, you guys will rent out for like $75. He goes, yeah, but it's like $75. You don't have anybody that has a truck? I said, dude, listen, you've got a truck. I'll pay the $75. I live down the street. I only probably need it for an hour. And he goes, okay. Like I was out of my mind. But the truth is, he was selling with his wallet. You always want to treat somebody like they've got all the money to buy whatever you want. Because if you're wrong, they're just going to say no. But if you're right, they buy more. On the other side, if you were right that they didn't have a lot of money, okay, all they did was buy whatever you sold them. But if you were wrong, you missed out on a lot of opportunity, a lot of sales, which by the way is important for a secondary reason, because he who spends money on 2 or more purchases outside of the main purchase in the gym world, such as ancillary sales, supplements, retail, stuff like that, has an 80% higher likelihood of staying a member longer. And if there's anybody you want to stay a member longer, it's people that buy more from you and spend more with you. So this is a really good opportunity to not only make more money on that initial sale, but to also get the members started off with a great experience, and then they stay even longer, which is great. So treat everybody like a millionaire. Always assume everybody can afford it, regardless of what they say. Next one, words matter. The words you choose to use will absolutely impact the outcome of what you're wanting to make happen. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I want you to imagine you're the coach of a basketball team, and you've got two players that all season long, they've been incredible for you. In fact, if you were to take their stat sheets and flip them over and cover their names so all you could see is the stats, you wouldn't be able to tell who is who. It's practically identical. Everything from points, rebounds, assists, steals, clutch, everything, they're the same. So now you're in the championship game. You've worked all season to get here. And the other team just scored and you're now down by 1 point. 2 seconds left, so you call a timeout because you know you only got one play left in you. If you make the right play, you win the championship. The season's all worth it. Make the wrong play, season's over. So you huddle with your team and you look at those two best players and you say, Mark, John, what do you think? What should we do? And Mark says, Coach, give me the ball. I'm going to try to make this shot. And John says, Coach, give me the ball. I will make this shot. Who's getting the ball? You giving it to Mark, who said he'll try to make the shot, or John, who said he will make the shot? Now, if you're like everyone that raised their hands at GSDCon, John's the one who's getting the ball. But why? I mean, off of one word, the stats say that they have the same chances. It's not like one has a better chance when one says another word. It's the same. We know John can miss. We're not like if he misses, we're going to say, you said you would make it. Why are we giving him the ball off of one word? Because it's simple. Certainty creates certainty. On top of that, lack of certainty creates lack of certainty. So when Mark didn't feel and sound certain, the coach lost certainty. When John sounded certain, coach increased certainty. So when we're selling, when we're speaking, think of all the times. In fact, I challenge you and your team to hold each other accountable to any time in the business, period. Whether you're making a sale, whether you're talking at lunch, doesn't matter. How many times you say passive language that create a lack of certainty, such as the word try, or the word kind of, pretty much, maybe, should be, could be. All of these words can create what's called a lack of certainty. I'll give you an example of what it could sound like and how another gym could sound better. Because I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but there's definitely times where I've made purchases where after I made the purchase, I go home and I tell people, man, this place is different. And they say, what was so different about it? I don't know. You can just tell. It's just different. Well, the reason you can't tell is because a lot of it was their level of certainty and their confidence in the words they choose to use. Tony Robbins has made an entire living off of teaching this stuff. Some people might have heard of NLP before. It stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. There's tons of books written on the importance of this, not only in sales, but in leadership, in parenting, in relationships, all of it. Okay, so here's how it sounds when a person has lack of certainty. So Jane, one of the things that we try to do here with all of our members is we try to get them to eat, really well about 80% of the time. And we also want to see if you could try to make it in here 2 times a week. If you get in 3, that would be great. But try to get in here at least 2 days a week. That's an example of, by the way, you probably feel like you don't say it like that. Listen to your salespeople the next time and also have them listen to you. I promise you, you're probably saying it. Okay, so here's what it sounds like with a gym with certainty. Okay, so Jane, we need you to come in here minimum 2 times per week. If you can make it in here, that's excellent. It's a bonus, but 2 is required. Is that okay? Yes, great. Also, it's a must that you're eating the way that we want you to eat, the way we've agreed on, 80% of the time. Now, there's going to be times where you're going to fall. When you do, I need you to log that. But 80% of the time, you've got to stay on track. If we can get you at 90%, even better. Fair enough? Yes, yes. Now, that is a gym that they're saying the same things, but this gym has confidence, has certainty, has assertiveness, and that goes right into the prospect or into the member if you'd have already sold them. So we want to make sure that we remember that words matter. Next, super big gap. Now, there's sales gurus out there that talk about creating a gap, and I think that's gotten misinterpreted. Gap meaning where you are and where you want to be. So I've heard salespeople in this industry talk about where they're at and where they want to be and almost put a little bit of shame into that, meaning, so how often are you eating? I'm eating like once a day. Like that look, not good. Or, so how long has it been since you worked out? It's been a couple years. Okay, so it's been a while. Like that's not good, okay? What you actually want to do is not create a super big gap. You actually want to create a super small gap. The idea with the big gap that I've heard gurus say is you want to get them to feel like they've got a lot of growth to happen in order to get to where they want to go. Like they're really far behind. This way they feel the pain. And then you being the solution to that pain can get them there. But the truth is that can paralyze a lot of people. And so you actually want to make the gap really, really small. So it kind of sounds like this. Hey, so Jim, here's the thing. You worked out, when you were in college and even a few years after that. So you've got a lot of the foundation built in. You just haven't tapped into it in a few years. Also, even though you only eat once a day, that's actually pretty common. A lot of people like doing what's called intermittent fasting, and people do that. So as long as we do it right, I don't think that's bad. I think you just found a way to start working on a habit that we just have to tweak. It sounds like you have the work schedule that's allowing you to work out. You're here for a good reason. I mean, honestly, you're pretty dang close. Like, I would say you're a lot closer than a lot of people when they first come in here. I think now it's just a matter of like making the first move. I think once you make the first move, everything just gets a lot easier. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. And then you go from there. So you want to make people feel like they're that close. You don't want to make people feel like they're so far behind. So make sure that when you're talking to people, stay away from those little like faces and those little looks and not make people feel like they're like super behind and make people feel like, you know what, you're actually that close. Like find a way to reframe it. 6 is a visual specific outcome. I think what a lot of people make mistakes on is they say stuff like 3 to 6 weeks. Oh, in 3 months, we should get you here. Oh, I think in 3 to 6 weeks, you should be here. I think in about 10 to 12 weeks, you should be here. You know what? I don't know what 10 to 12 weeks is. Can you right now tell me what the date is 10 to 12 weeks from now? No. Can you tell me what the date is 4 to 5 weeks from now or 4 to 5 months from now? No. And so what happens is neither can they. But the cool thing about America, probably anywhere in the world really, is that there's always a holiday. There's always something that you can create an anchor to create a visual. In sales, you actually want to paint a picture. The clearer the picture, the easier it is for them to move toward it. But the more cloudy the picture, the harder it is to know where to begin. And so you want to create a clear picture. So let's say you were about to say, we believe we can help you get there in 3 months. Okay, well, as of the filming of this video, it's May 5th. So I would say, okay, so John, we can get you there in 3 months. So today's May 5th, so that would be June, July, August. So by August 5th, basically, you're still in summer. You'll still be in beach season. You're going to be exactly where you want to be. Sound good? Yes. Now, let's say I said it was 9 months away. Yeah. So John, we believe we can get you there in 9 months. So it's May 5th. So June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So by Valentine's Day, you're going to be like the best looking date that your wife's had in a long, long time, right? You can do that with anything. You could take any amount of time and you're going to be either A, in the midst of a season or just about to approach a season where you could say stuff like, so by Thanksgiving, you'll be sitting at the table already where you want to be. So by the time you're walking into the new year and everyone's starting the resolutions, you've actually already hit your goal. So by the time everyone's celebrating Memorial Day barbecue, hoping to eat a little healthier, you got the flexibility because you put in the work, right? So you can always anchor it, but people need to see it. And if you just tell them 3 to 6 weeks, it means nothing. You think it does, but it means nothing to them. So you got to give them a picture. Number 7, forgetting that you're the first domino. So what does that mean? I talked a little bit about it earlier. Fitness is one of those things that when you begin it, a lot of amazing things happen. And I think for a lot of salespeople in this space, they forget what they're actually selling. And what they think they're selling is something that people get a membership to. Maybe a fun place to work out, a great class, whatever. But that's not what you're selling. Your people need to truly understand that what they're doing is they're beginning to click that first domino. So here's what I mean. Habits attract like habits. If you start drinking, probability is you're going to start staying out later. If you start staying out later, chances are you're going to start eating unhealthier. Eating unhealthier, you're probably going to wake up later, as well as because you slept later. Waking up later means you're probably not going to start the habits that you did in the morning, which means you're probably just going to make it to work on time, if not be late. Be late more often. You're probably going to be an excuse maker and start coming up with stuff, maybe a liar. And you could see how little by little, all of these habits start attracting like habits. Well, guess what? When people join a gym membership, they're also more likely to start shopping for healthier food, start shopping for clothes that are more for fitness. They're more likely to say no to things they would typically say yes to, or say yes to things they would typically say no to that align with their new membership. So when they say fitness helps people change lives, it's way more than because we're working out and we're having fun. It's because you don't choose your future. Nobody does. You choose your habits, and your habits choose your future. I've never met a person that's extremely successful with a collection of bad habits. And I've never met a person that's extremely unsuccessful with a collection of great habits. So what that means is we've got to be somebody that can knock down that first domino and be the first habit of several habits that can ultimately change their life. Next is rapport. But most people build it wrong. So what do I mean by most people build it wrong? I'll tell you right now, you probably do it. This is like 9 out of 10. Even I catch myself slipping. Sometimes it's a hard one because society continues to retrain you on how to do it. I'll give you an example. I've got 4 kids. I don't know how many you've got, but imagine you also had 4 kids. And a lead comes in, you start talking to her and you say, do you have any kids? She goes, oh yeah, I have 4 kids. There's probably something inside you that wants to go, I've got 4 kids too. Why? Why do we feel the need to say that? Well, Mike, because it brings us together. It shows that we have something in common. No, it's because you want to talk about yourself. That's why. You don't need to have 4 kids to make the sale, do you? What if you had 2? Is that it? Dead sale? No, then don't bring it up. The reason we want to do that is because we believe that bringing 2 things that we have in common will build rapport. But you know what the best way to build rapport is? To talk about something you both actually care about. That's building rapport. And that's why you talked about your kids. Well, what do you care about? You probably care about that prospect and their goals in their life. You should, if you want to make the sale. And what do you think they care about? What's everyone's favorite topic in the whole wide world? Themselves. Wait a minute. You mean that as long as if I talk about the prospect, I'm guaranteed to always talk about something that they care about? Yep. You mean if I just keep talking about the prospect, it'll be building rapport consistently throughout the conversation? Yep. So how do I do it? Well, the prospect says to you, yeah, I've got 4 kids. And you go, oh, you got 4 kids. How old are they? You don't have to talk about how you got 4 kids too. How old are they? Oh, they're ranging between 5 and 19. Now, let's say you also got a 19-year-old. You could just say, and which one's most like you? Oh, definitely the 19-year-old. Oh, that's great. That's great. And boys, girls, right? You just stay to them. They're excited to talk about themselves. Trust me, they're not upset because they're not hearing how many kids you got. They're not even thinking about it. Let's say you're from New Jersey and the person comes in and they go, yeah, we moved here from Jersey. I know. Everything in you wants to go, I'm from New Jersey. No, doesn't matter. What brought you out here from Jersey? Really? How long you been here? Would you grow up in Jersey your whole life? Don't worry. When they sign up, you could talk about it. I know you're excited. Trust me. You don't need it to make the sale. If you were from Oklahoma, you'd still be able to close this person. So don't risk it. There's no reason to add anything into your sales process that isn't about the prospect and the problem. That's it. So when you're building rapport, talk only about them. Don't discuss yourself. You're not relevant to the sale. And number 9, all of this revolves around what's called CPT. Now, I made a whole video talking about this, but I'm going to do a condensed version in here because it is important to 9 sales mistakes. A big mistake that a lot of people make is they do some training and then they don't do it anymore because they think, oh yeah, we did training when they first come in, or maybe we'll do training quarterly. But the truth is training isn't something you did, it's something you do. And so when you're wanting to get better at the piano, if you just learn a song and then stop playing, you're going to forget the song and you're going to start hitting random keys. Same thing with a language, same thing with fitness, same thing with anything. Training isn't something you did, it's something you do. And so there's a few things that are super important in order to make sure that we succeed. Number one, we have to make sure that our team has massive conviction. And so we as leaders, and also the team can contribute, are constantly pumping in stories of what our company is doing for people. So sharing the lives that have changed, the results that have happened, the words that were shared that meant a lot to that person to share that because they were super grateful for what our business has done for them in their lives. So we have to continuously talk about it. The reason the owner can always outsell the employee in most cases is because the owner has the most conviction. But if we can get that conviction and bring it into our people, it's super easy. Next, not focusing enough on the process. Also, the owner doesn't always follow the sales process, but they have a process they want their people to follow. The truth is, we have to constantly commit to a process and tweak that process as we go to make sure that we're closing the most people and also that we're building a system that employees can, as they come and go, which they will, can fall into the system and you win because of the system. Great people don't build great companies. Great systems build great companies, and great people run those systems greatly. So that's what you want. And the more value you want in your company, the more this is important. So let's say one day you plan on selling your company. Well, the company is more valuable if it has great systems and average people than if it has great people and average systems. Why? Because great people are hard to find and expensive. But on top of that, the system is doing the work. I just know that I can always, if somebody falls out, I can next man up and somebody can run that system. But here, actually, as an investor, would get nervous to invest in this business. So the most valuable businesses are the ones that have the greatest system, not necessarily the greatest people. And then lastly, like we kind of discussed, training. A great sales team has these three things. They got great conviction, constantly pumping into their minds. They've got a great process they're constantly tweaking and running through. And then they've got great training to make sure that everything is humming the way it's supposed to and no one's drifting away from the initial process we've agreed on and how we do things. So in your business, these are areas I want you to work on this week. Now, you don't have to work at all of them, but I want you to start with one of them. And if you want to learn more about how this actually works, you can go to 100kplan.com and you'll see how a lot of the gyms that we work with that are doing $100,000 a month or more are actually like mastering this stuff. And I bring up a lot of them in that video that you'll watch on 100kplan.com so you can see it. And then from there, you'll have a much, much clearer and better idea as to what changes you might want to make in your business. Okay, until then, we'll see you next time.